fill your cup first. Fill your cup first before you pour into others. We need to be strong within our own resolve before we can go out there and pour into others.
I'm Dr. Lamont Repollet, the president of Kean, New Jersey's Urban Research University. This is Urban Impact, a podcast where we examine the complex issues facing urban communities through meaningful conversations with scholars, community leaders, and others who are driving change. Recorded and produced on our campus in Union, New Jersey, this is Urban Impact. Here are your hosts, Michael Salvatore and Barbara George Johnson.
Well, I am excited to be here. I didn't sleep last night. It was just one of those things. I was so excited not just to meet with you, but to talk to you. Following in the footsteps of his iconic grandfather, Ndaba Mandela is currently the co-founder and the chairman of Mandela Institute for Humanity, where he lifts up the next generation of African leaders and fights for the end of HIV/AIDS. And also as a senior human rights fellow at Kean University's Human Rights Institute. Thank you for joining us, Ndaba.
Thank you very much. I am happy to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you. Let me give you a little background. So our podcast is focused on impact here. It's called Urban Impact.
Okay.
And you certainly are a great guest because you have an amazing legacy of global impact that you're continuing.
Yes, sir.
What has your family's legacy taught you about how to have an impact, whether it be the projects you engage with,
Right.
the discussions you're having, the initiatives you take? Tell me a little bit about that.
So, the most important thing really is to choose an area that you're passionate about. Don't do it because you're trying to impress David over there in your science class, or, you're trying to score points with your lecturer. No. Do it because genuinely that is what that's where your heart is, and that's what your heart cries out for. Because along the way, we are always going to be met with hurdles and speed bumps along the way. At the beginning, people will say, oh, you're just a believer, oh, you're just a dreamer. But remember, it all starts with the dream. And one day at a time, as we work on it, we get to, celebrate the small wins along the way. And don't ever go into anything having preconceived notions of what the solution looks like. The most important thing is to, when you do engage with people and you're trying to come up with a solution for a particular challenge or challenges, sometimes when you're dealing with a community, and there may be more than one, it's important for one to remember to listen. Listening is a great skill to have. And when you are able to listen to the community, you are then able to build solutions that include the community, so that when you're building solutions, the community is very much part of the solution building. And of course, I think, you have to be honest with yourself. You have to have a mentor, somebody who is there, who wants to see you win, who obviously can guide you and give you advice along the way, because it's not always going to be a pretty road. As they say, you can plan a pretty picnic, but you can't predict the weather.
Very, very good. I noticed that from your background that you are really involved with urban communities. This podcast is Urban Impact, but the university itself, we take pride in being a legislative designated urban research institution.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. So I want to talk to you today because you have a focus, this similar focus around urban communities and urban work. Tell me what your mission is and why you're pursuing work in urban communities.
Well, to be honest with you, when you look at politics or politicking, a lot of the young people have become despondent. A lot of the people are no longer feeling like politics is the way to go, because there's always corruption, there's always scandals, there's all this negative sort of cloud that goes around politics. So for me, it's about making sure that people understand that things are not going to change unless they get involved. So a lot of the time, the people that don't want to get involved are the urban dwellers, as you know. It's always usually the people from outside of town. The cool kids never want to get involved because they're too busy being cool, But actually being cool, for example, we need to understand it's not just about voting for the president. It's also about the mayor and the councillors, right, that serve on the committee with the mayor, right, who make decisions about how much budget is going to law enforcement, how much budget is going into healthcare, how much budget is going to education. And unless our urban dwellers get involved, there's never really going to be any change. So for me, it's about getting people to understand that the only change is going to come is when they get involved. And the urban people, sometimes, as you know, are too busy worrying about their own lives, not understanding that they have to participate in order for things to change. Sure.
There is this basic needs component that they're uber focused on because they have to provide.
Right.
So I'm glad you understand that. That's legacy work right there. Really important to every community.
Yeah.
Tell me about the future for you. What does the future hold? What is something you're excited about working on?
So, we've been trying to get this leadership program off the ground for a number of years now. We started just before COVID. Of course, everything came to halt when COVID hit. But essentially, the leadership program, which we started with our institution for humanity, the Mandela Institute for Humanity, is really a leadership program where we are trying to teach young people the values, the leadership style, and the principles of Nelson Mandela leadership. How do we basically firstly inspire young kids to say, listen, Nelson Mandela went to school for the first time wearing his father's pants with no shoes on. And he rose to become one of the most known notable leaders in the world. So in this day and age, there is nothing that stops us. We have all the tools. We know how to access the resources, right? We are very lucky to have amazing leaders that we interact with in forms of our faculty members, in forms of our lecturers. We have a whole host of resources that one can tap at the university. So it's really about how do we teach young people these values that make a great leader? And once we've taught them those values, how do they then apply what they've taught in their own work? So whether it be him being an entrepreneur, starting a business or running a business, growing his business, or it could be whereby he is now a community activist, he is engaged in community work, and they want to apply some of those skills and some of those values that Nelson Mandela exudes to become better leaders. And that for us is something where we take half of those young people from America, and the other half will be African. And again, we are trying to, bring different cultures together, but ultimately under what does leadership look like and how can we continue to, use these values to inspire us to become better leaders.
I think you joined us last year. You spoke to an auditorium of over 1,000 students.
Yes.
And I wish you were able to hear some of the comments as the students were leaving.
Oh.
It was really a beacon of hope, the discussion, the conversation, the tips that you were sharing with them.
Beautiful.
Because I think all of us want to have an impact,
yes,
whether it be in our household, our community that we live in, our country, or the world. Everybody wants to have a positive impact, but most people don't know where to start. And I think that's your message. This entire leadership institute you're talking about is saying you don't have to be paralyzed in your space, that you can have a voice. So where do people start? Where if you were giving advice to not just the youth today, but people who really wanted to make a difference, to have an impact, where would you say, hey, this is the start here. This is the best way to start your journey?
Well, as you know, they say charity begins at home. So we have to begin at home. We have to begin in our own community. We have to begin within our university. We already have a support group. If you look at our households, whether it's your aunt or your grandparents or your parents that you live with, right? You have your schoolmates, right? All your university college buddies. You have faculty members who are there to help you with all your projects. So for me, the best place to start is to start in your own community, whether that be your household or at your university or at your job, right? Or even in your community. You see, when I started this organization back in South Africa called Africa Rising, the first people I went to tell about the project were the people at my workspace. And I basically recruited all the 8 Black people who were working at this financial institution that I was working in, basically. And from there, they all actually bought into the idea, but they were already thinking similar things. You'd be very surprised, when you actually go out there and you talk to people and you engage with people, how much they are thinking similar things to yourself. And once you have that pool of people, whether it's from your household or from your workplace or from your university, there is nothing that you can really, that will stop you, because from there, you need to have a mentor. Mentorship is key. Somebody who's older than you, who's more experienced than you, who can also assist you when you do come across those speed bumps, along the way. And of course, that person is also going to help you to be able to unearth and to unlock resources in order for you to get your work done. A lot of the people, forget that if you are in a better position, if you have more wealth than the average person, you're actually in a position to do much more good than a person who still has to worry about themselves. So another thing I will also advising people is that fill your cup first. Fill your cup first before you pour into others. Because if your cup is not filled, how much are you going to be able to really do for others if you only have half? You see, if you only have half, then you can only pour a quarter into somebody else's cup, because then you'll only be left with a quarter. So we need to remember as young people that when we go out there into the community, we need to have our cups filled first. We need to have nourishment. We have to have enough sleep. You need to have exercise. It can be yoga, it can be Pilates, it could be any kind of exercise. But we need to live a balanced life, right? We need to be strong in order for us to go out there and do work for the community, because ultimately, we are now going to be the crutch for the community. We are now going to be that extra leg or the extra hand that the community needs. So we need to be strong within our own resolve before we can go out there and pour into others.
Put the oxygen mask on yourself first.
There you go.
Right? Put it on yourself, then take care of those around you. I'm so glad you're talking about this, because it's a topic I think a lot of young men don't want to talk about in terms of how to take care of themselves,
right?
Their mental health, their physical health. You even mentioned sleep, which I thought was awesome, because so many people take pride in the lack of sleep. Oh, I only slept 4 hours. I only sleep 5 hours a night. But what are we learning about the science of sleep? We're learning that it impacts our mind, our body, our ability to perform and to be productive. Awesome. What a great message. I asked for a couple of tips and you gave us 5 right off the top of the head. I want to talk to you about HIV/AIDS. It's a topic you're really passionate about and personally connected to. Tell me a little bit of why this pursuit.
So, unfortunately, when I was about 19 years old, my mother contracted HIV/AIDS and passed away from HIV/AIDS. And then 2 years later, my father died of HIV/AIDS. So we as a family then gathered to discuss what we're going to tell the world of how our loved ones had perished. And one of my cousins raised a hand and said, well, we can say TB or pneumonia killed him, because HIV/AIDS doesn't kill you, it kills your immune system, so you're unable to defend yourself against those common illnesses, right? And my grandfather said, no, we shall not do that. We shall simply say the life of my son was taken by HIV/AIDS. So it was a very poignant time in our history fighting this epidemic, because people were dying in silence. People were dying, unable to disclose that they had got this disease. You see, For example, if someone was involved in a same-sex relationship and they decide to get tested, obviously the medical practitioners will ask them to come and bring their partners. Now, they bring their partners who happen to be the same sex sort of relationship. They get ridiculed by the very same people who are supposed to be giving them care, the nurses, the doctors themselves, because this is Africa. Africa are not really that open, right, when it comes to different sexual orientations. And obviously we have the heavy sort of presence of the church. West Africa has got a huge Muslim influence, as most of East Africa is as well. So looking at all these different dynamics and different influences on our society, it became very difficult for people with different sexual orientations to actually have services, to have access to medicine, to have access to even testing, something as easy as testing. And so because another devastating thing that the HIV/AIDS epidemic created is what we call child-headed households. It ravaged the people so badly that both parents would die. As my both parents died within 2 years of each other.
How old were you when that?
So when my mother died, I was 19 and my father was 21. Within 2 years of each other, both my parents have been ravaged by HIV/AIDS.
Oh,
So you can imagine you have a situation now where it's a 15-year-old looking after the 9-year-old and 5-year-old sibling. Now you ask yourself, what kind of a job is a 15-year-old gonna get to support their siblings? Clearly not a job that's legal. It's gonna be something illegal. It's gonna be something that contributes to the social ills of our society, whether it be drugs, alcohol, gangsterism, right? And it perpetuates these social ills. And you talk about human trafficking, and then it just becomes worse and worse and worse. So I looked at it and I said, the challenges that child-headed households have are somewhat insurmountable. As long as we can try to provide food, some sort of counseling, and support structure for these child-headed households. And that's why I've worked, and I've been very lucky to work with UNAIDS, to work with AIDS Funds. I've just done a promotion for AIDS Funds, which is an organization in Netherlands that looks after orphanages, as well as old age homes. One of the things that they discovered was that it's nice to pair an old age home with an orphanage, because then you have kids and old people coming together, and it's like the full circle of life is right there.
Yeah,
so these ones have somebody to look after, and these ones have somebody to play with.
I want to close with today, where we're at in our world in terms of advocacy and this convergence of technology. What advice do you have for our young ones, our college age students and those in high school, in terms of how to use technology in the right way to be an advocate, or how to be very cautious and careful with the technology in their advocacy?
Yeah, you see, these days it's very difficult, because when you look at, for example, the feed you get on your Instagram or Twitter versus the feed that I get, though that feed has actually been already influenced by certain algorithms depending on what we liked, didn't like, what we follow, who we don't follow, etc., etc. So the problem is today is that we may be in the same university, but we're getting fed different information on our stream, right? Because of the different algorithms. Now, we may even argue on certain things that normal people call facts. So that's the danger, that we have to actually warn our young people, is that our kids are living in the different realities, but actually in the same, same space, but different realities, which is insane in a way. You know what I mean? We never had this kind of problem. So I think it's also important for the teachers, our parents, people who generally have access to young people, to now and again just have conversations with young people, because you never know the reality that one may be living, yet living in the same space. And I saw this happening when it came to the Trump, actually now, this past
election?
The past election.
Yeah.
And the election before, when obviously they used it during Obama's time, but they started using it at Trump's first election, when he was first elected.
2016.
There is a documentary that I saw on Netflix called The Greatest Hack. Everybody needs to watch this documentary on Netflix called The Greatest Hack. And it's all about how it was actually Facebook selling their people to advertisement and campaign companies to push their certain slogan, and they were targeting people who had not voted yet or who were in the middle, right? They know by the things you like, by the things you follow, the things you expose yourself to on social media, whether you're right or left. Then they also know whether you're in the center and you kind of are just coasting along, just coasting along. And so they pick those people to advertise to. So there's a lot of trouble out there. But besides all those challenges that we have of technology and social media, I want to encourage young people to actually dream. And I want to say to young people, dream big. If your dreams don't scare you, you are not dreaming big enough. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How do you achieve your dreams? One day at a time. Don't forget to celebrate those small wins along the way as we're working towards the big dream. Martin Luther King had a dream. JFK had a dream. Nelson Mandela had a dream. Every single person, whether it was Steve Jobs, whether it was, the founder of Amazon, they all started off with a dream. So let us encourage young people to dream. Let us find the Nelson Mandela within you and unleash him onto the world.
Thank you for listening to Urban Impact, a podcast produced by Kean, New Jersey's Urban Research University. Subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get podcasts. For more information, visit kean.edu/urban-impact.